Welcome to Food for Action. I am here again. Oh, let me turn this. I forgot about the AC. Let me get rid of that. All right. Oh, forgot about something else too, which is awesome that I need, and that is music. Uh, Been doing a lot of last minute work here for tonight's Food for Action episode. A lot of people that I've invited to stop by, a lot of posts, and a lot of comments, a lot uh, uh, people that I need to make you aware of that are probably friends that we share on Facebook and other social media platforms, but most importantly, Facebook. And a lot going on. Congratulations, Kamala Harris, on being um, the VP candidate on the Democratic ticket with Joe Biden. That's freaking awesome. Uh, we'll talk a lot more about that as well. Let's see. Right now, I am going to pipe in some music because I found a couple good stations.
Like he's been my guardian angel.
And I definitely want to have some music happening. Hold on a second.
Picture from here of Jerry. Her answer is rooted in work before COVID-19. She says Jerry would always sit right next to his client.
Okay, sorry about that.
Client, like this is.
All right. Whoops. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So a lot is going on today. Let's see, a lot is going on. I am going to be talking about lots of things that hopefully are important to everyone. And again, a lot of people that I've invited to stop by. Even my daughter might stop by today because she brought up a very important subject that a lot of people, and more importantly, a lot of young people are dealing with, that extends itself to them based on this whole systemic and racism that's occurring still to this day in this country and all over the world. Um, Again, we're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on YouTube, and we're streaming on uh, Twitch at the moment. Uh, yeah, that's pretty awesome too. And I'm trying to find this hip hop station that I had on, and then hold on a second. Oh, this is crazy TV. But anyways, so let me thank everybody who is tuning in now, and all of those who will tune in shortly. There's a lot of people that tell me that it takes them like till 7:30 or longer to be able to get linked up for some reason. I don't know if that's because of traffic and because of people coming in and out or whatever. But so we are going to definitely take the necessary time to make sure that that everybody gets to take part in this conversation. Um, Again, let me go over and read the mission statement because I think that's one of the most important things to have established. For all of those people who write these ugly comments to me about their views about either claiming that racism doesn't exist, or I mean, there's so many things. It's so bizarre. But yeah, there's many people who literally, I was going through it today with people that believe that systemic racism isn't even a thing, and try to say that they have black friends that tell them that it doesn't exist. It's really crazy, and but this is actually something that's going on, and so hopefully I will be able to provide enough information so that people will understand that this is not a joke, that this is not an attention grab, that this is literally something that we're dealing with in this country, and that is a thing called systemic racism. and outright racism in America. And so, and it has led to the pain, the oppression, the hurt, harm, mentally, physically, and even lives lost. Which also today I will be, as I told you Sunday, from this point forward, each show we're going to focus and bring attention to one of the lives that we've lost, because there's so many people in the white community that believe that it's only a few people. It's only the people that they've seen lately. So I have hundreds and hundreds of people, several different people on different Instagram, social websites, networking websites, and so on, have helped contribute to this list, so that I could have much more stats than what I already had. So, so I'll be focusing on a different person to have them be remembered and acknowledged by whoever is to tune in, either live or if you catch up with the live stream later on um, either the page, the Food for Action page, or the or here if you want to scroll back through, or on YouTube later, or on Twitch. So yeah, so first we'll do the mission statement, and the mission statement is that, and so people understand, if you're new to this, you understand the purpose of this. And hold on, my headache is killing me, so I got to do the glass switch. Sorry. Okay, so thank you. That's way better. Okay, so so the purpose of this whole live stream is to acknowledge and express the racial divide, racism, oppression, exploitation, systemic racism, violence against black women, black men, black youth in the United States and all over the world. It is also to be a hope that we will proactively help create a path through this conversation, which is food for action, from thought to action. Hopefully, this will produce that, and it will create a path to a true united state in America, so that the state of America will not be of such hate and division and harm, and that we will at some point in the future, hopefully nearer future than later, be a united American state as a country. So that is the mission statement, and I will do that each episode, just to make sure that if anybody has not heard that, that they will eventually hear that. So what I want to do first is I want to throw out a few statistics that you can get from any government website. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that people understand that if you go to the Department of Justice or any government website that is not Democrat or Republican, but you can go to other websites as well, I want to throw out some statistics that I believe are very important for people who like to throw around the comment black on black crime. I want to first say that in this country, as of the statistics for 2020 are not out yet, but as of the statistics up to 2019, which reported as of last week in many, you can just Google and all the sites will come up, so I don't even have to list them. At this point, I want to make sure that you understand that white on white crime, which is not a term that people use for some reason. I don't understand why it is so comfortable for people to, I mean, it's the rebuttal for everything that is spoken about racism, especially by black people. When we speak about this, I get it all the time. I can post these things for you. But the first thing people want to say is, when we talk about racism or we talk about police brutality or so on, the first thing they say is, well, what about black on black crime? Well, let me be clear. In America, of a population of I think it was 2.3 whatever the heck million crime as far as crime rate. We are looking at uh, first of all, the black population only makes up 13.4% of the population. Hispanic population is is 23%. So um, that's first and foremost. Second, I went over the crime rate statistics when I was talking about um, the um, the jail, the business of prison, and so on. I went over that, so you can go back to that episode, which was 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, 2 episodes ago, and you can go over that information. But you'll see the statistics and how they are far um, um, prejudicial and racist the way that the farming of prisoners goes in favor of being unfair to black folks and brown folks. But a statistic that's always left out, which is very important, is that white on white crime, 85% of white crime, in other words, or harm to white folk, is done by white folks. So when people are so anxious to point out black on black crime, maybe we need to start saying white on white crime. I mean, if we're going to do a balance here, we want to balance things out and make things make sense instead of throwing things out that have nothing to do with another. Like if I'm talking about systemic racism and then you talk about black on black crime, those two subjects, they're not part of each other, but let's do two equal subjects. Let's go white on white crime and black on black crime, and let's have that productive conversation. That would be helpful um, to this whole learning process and hopefully bridging the gap process and understanding process. So that is the first statistic that I wanted to bring out. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands. You know, this when people try to say the black on black crime, people try to to when there's peaceful protest and they see black folk and there's white folks doing it too, but when they do see an element of folks doing vandalism or whatever that who are not part of the peaceful protest, but they're just people who join in and try to convolute the issue. And so, but they just because they're just up to no good. When those folks, white, black, and other, when they join in and try to bring upon harm to the peaceful protest by doing those bad things, then people always start to throw out all kind of things about reverse racism or just how violent black folks are. So I wanted to make sure that people understand that there's a big thing that's missed in these conversations, and that is that when we want to talk about why things are the way they are. You remember that in the beginning of this country, racism was something that was imposed upon black people. This was not something that was traded back. Like black people weren't imposing that on white people, and then white people were imposing it on black people. It wasn't some kind of tit for tat. It wasn't some kind of thing where you did it to me, I did it to you. That's not what was going on. It was one group of people, white people, that were imposing slavery upon black people and racism upon black people and making black people less than people, making them a product, making them a property. And so that was being done to them. So what happens a lot of times when we talk about these things today is that when we're being hurt and we're expressing these things, and some people express them in a positive way, some people express them in a negative way. I like to believe that I'm one of the people that's expressing it in a positive way. But a lot of people are stuck in this place that because they have no access to a way out, and so they get stuck into situations like gangs or selling drugs or stealing. Again, we all have free will, so we choose these things, and if we choose to do bad things, then we suffer the consequences for those things. But the point is that there's an underlying issue here, which is that that these actions, unexcusable as they may be, are a product of what has been done to a whole portion of society. If the same if the same avenues and the same opportunities and the same quality of life was afforded to black and brown people and people in lower uh, socioeconomical areas and underserved areas, if if the same opportunities and avenues were open and the same financial structure, the same, like I said, socio-economical structure, the same opportunities, availability to education, educational and technology, and all the things that I've mentioned before, if these things were available, then maybe, just maybe, the odds of choosing right paths instead of wrong paths would be the first choice for people in these communities. But white people in white communities, people that are in these other communities outside of this who don't get to experience this, don't understand that choice, because you don't have to make that choice. There's never a moment, and I'm not saying that there aren't some white people that have to struggle, but I'm saying that for the most part, and usually the people that have so much to say, the people who have deemed themselves the authorities on all things black lives somehow or another, and all things racism, even though they've never walked in the shoe of racism, being um, a target of racism in their lives. But they have so much to say, which I'm going to give you some examples of during this time together. But uh, they are self um, um, appointed authorities and judges and juries about how black people should feel and how we should accept those challenges that we've been given that you've not been given, is way beyond. Uh, um, I can't conceive it. I don't understand how people put themselves in a position of that kind of authority to believe that they can judge circumstances that they know nothing of. I'm so confused. Look, first and foremost, you're not in black skin. So because you're not in black skin or brown skin, then you're not going to experience being oppressed as a black person. You can experience being poor as a white person, or living in a underserved um, neighborhood as a white person, but you're still not black. And so because you're not black, there is an instant difference of experience. And the difference is huge. It's ginormous, as I like to say. It's not just some simple little difference of, you know, some like minuscule difference, like of eating a Lay's potato chip and a freaking Ruffles or something. That's not the difference. It's a human perception difference. I mean, it's like I was trying to explain Sunday. It's something as simple as knowing that from as little kids, as little kids, we're taught right out the gate through TV shows, through comic books, through school books, through whatever. When you see a picture of the villain is usually wearing black. And when you see the picture of the person dressed in white, that person is usually the hero. Well, something like that, although it is just an illustration, maybe on a page or maybe in a movie, but that's a concept that little people And sometimes, unfortunately, big people have ingrained in their minds. And sometimes we have that ingrained in our minds because we're taught as black people those same things. And we're not taught all the wonderful, amazing things that we did. We're not taught all the things that are coming out now about how there were kings and there were black kings and princes and royalty that were here and were what's the word? Were I can't even think of the word. They were discovering America and so on before there was a Christopher Columbus or any of that. Before slavery and so on, there was before white people even made their thoughts to get so the point is that so having being be brought up, raised to have it ingrained in your learning, programmed in your learning that things that are black are bad, things that are white are good. They even do it now. Look, when people talk about goth, it's like, well, we're going to wear all black clothes and we're going to black clothes and we're going to whatever. Well, and then that's considered bad. So it's even people have even chosen to take that description, that color description, and do that. So I remember walking down the street, and this is even as a youngster, where I was lighter skinned than I am now as a kid, because I never would go out in the sun and whatever. But as a kid, I remember even being lighter skinned, but I wasn't white. And I remember watching white people move cross to the other side of the street. Even when my own mom, who is white, was there, because my dad was there, and my dad is black. And so it's just there's so many baffling things, so much more than that. And I'm gonna definitely make sure that I take certain days and I direct them strictly towards that thing of the system of learning, whether it's in school or in communities or in media, TV, radio, movies, so books, whatever, comic books, to make sure that people understand that there are so many different devices that were used to create this way of thinking. So I am sure that there are many white folks that weren't initially, because again, when nobody's born racist, and so I'm sure that there are plenty that not only did they hear these things from other people, but they were scared the first time they saw a black person, because the imagery that was already ingrained into their brains, because that's where education was and still in some forms is, was ingrained that black, so that means anything dark complected, is most probably evil. Well, I mean, this is insane. Now, before I move forward, I have to bring up the fact of that a lot of times when I talk to people about these things, they want to mention, and I'm not going to name these folks because I'm not here to promote them, but they want to mention a couple of black folks that do right-wing media sites, and they speak against that racism exists, and they speak against so on. And let me say this: I know some people who do this, and I know that they do it for the money. Now, that I'm not saying that everybody who does that is. There may be some black folks that are just 100% just don't think that racism exists. They're just as blind as some other folks. To those folks, I continue to pray for them, and I pray for their families, because when their kids grow up, boy, that's going to be tough if they have kids. Um, but all that at the same time, you know, when we talk about, there is a very big market that is open. I actually have already had two different people ask me about doing that. Well, would you ever consider talking about the other side, doing it the other way? And to me, especially, I believe that God brought me to this point. If you saw the first episode again, you would see that it was tears and hurt and pain that ended up making me start talking on Facebook. Everybody who knows me, if you scroll back through my Facebook before June of this year, I wasn't doing this outwardly. My friends, the close circles of people that I would come in contact with, and then we would engage in conversation. If they were strangers, they would know how I feel about this topic. They would know how and understand what I think about racism. But I wasn't out here doing it like this. And so, but again, I've already been spoken to by a couple of people who um, it would be beneficial, probably financially, to do that, and it would open up my following probably. But then I have to think about principles, and I have to think about morals, and I have to think about values, and I have to say, wait a minute, um, why am I going to lie to anybody else about what's going on? Because I've lived it, I've experienced it, and if I've experienced it, then I know that all of my darker brothers and sisters have experienced it probably worse than I have. So why would I take that knowledge, knowing that those things exist, and knowing what about my father and his family, and then what happened between my mom and him, which she's going to explain to you because she's going to come on for an episode soon. Hi, Mom, I love you. Hey, Dad, I love you. Happy birthday again. But my dad's birthday was yesterday. Awesome. But anyways, so why would I then, shut this down and then open up some website saying, Trumpian type of things? That just doesn't make any sense. And so everybody who does follow this and who is enjoying this and who is learning something from it, and being able to share this stuff, please know that you don't have to worry about me doing that, because I will not. I won't do that to the blessings that God has given me. So, and anybody who does, that's them, and hey, there's hustles out there, and so people are taking advantage of them. I know a couple sisters that do it. I know a couple brothers that do it, and everybody's got choices to make, and they're going to live with those things, and they're going to have consequences for them, and I just hope and pray that things work out for the best. But everybody can tell you, like I said, that systemic racism exists. It's obvious, and even from every system, from manufacturing to politics to education systems to political systems to judicial systems to, if you name it, law enforcement, police officers. There's chiefs and heads of departments and all those things that I don't know what the different titles are called. There's mayors and governors, white and black, and other ethnicities that all are admitting, corporations and CEOs and so on. There is every demographic and every system that is admitting and coming to the table admitting that this exists, and it's not just money grabs, and there are some of those too. But when you have so many people admitting it, and you have so many people protesting peacefully against it, and then you have us who have to endure it and have endured it for hundreds of years, then and there's only this one fragment of society that denies it, then I mean, what's the old thing? It walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. So I don't want to cheapen racism by calling racism a duck, but sometimes you got to say different things so that people can kind of get it. So, and I do pray that that folks start to get it. But going back to what I was saying, so when people talk about reverse racism, when we talk about racism itself, it was something that was initiated by white people against black people. Period. Exclamation point. There's nothing else that, I mean, there's plenty more that needs to be said about it. You need to understand it. You need to study it. You need to know it. Whether you're black, white, or other, or whatever. You got to understand it. You need to know it because you need to be helping fight it. You need to be helping fight racism and not sitting around talking about it doesn't exist and blah, 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 blah. Because it does exist. But when this was started, it was perpetuated upon black people by white people. It was not perpetuated by black people onto white people, which means that anything that we did in retaliation, rather it's a peaceful protest, or some people get aggravated and they don't know how to do it, so they might be violent, or they might be, they might damage property, or they might, whatever the case is. Those things are products of it. It's like me punching somebody in the face and then telling them how they got to respond to that. That's basically what white America and the systemic racism and racism, this whole structure that was built from the ground up, from the founding of this country, that's what you're telling black people. Is you're saying, well, yeah, you've been killed, you've been raped, you've been you've enslaved, you've been oppressed, you've had your families torn apart, you've been thrown into impoverished society environments. We don't make sure your neighborhoods are funded properly. We don't make sure your schools are funded properly. We don't make sure that there's socio-economical routes and avenues available to you. We don't make sure that there's any avenues available to you. If you find it, good luck. And so if that's how, and you know this because every time you hear a story about a black person who made it, it's this very dynamic story. Why is that? Because it's damn dynamic to try to get there like that from those environments, those neighborhoods, those avenues. So basically, you're saying that yes, white America imposed that way of life upon us, or that way of death upon us, and yet we're supposed to just forget about it. Oh, yeah, leave it in the past. But it's not the past. It is the present. Some people see it now. There's a small amount of from the billions that don't see it. And those people are the people that I'm speaking to. But I'm also speaking to those of you who are acknowledging that it exists, but you're doing nothing about it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm telling you to do it. I'm telling you that not because I say so, but because your conscience, your heart, your spirit, your goodness, because all of us are born with that. God made us all with that. So because of that, your goodness that God made you should entice you to want to make sure that racism and systemic racism is not imposed upon any living, breathing human being. Now that, my friends, that is just fact, and that is just something that I'm hoping that this will help you to do, and I'm hoping that that if it's not me, some other avenue, some other black person, or maybe some other white person who's talking to you about it will spark something inside of you. But something has to do it because it can't continue to just be perpetrated and perpetuated through society and just be some, it's the people saying it's happening and they're feeling it, they're hurting and they're dying from it, and then the other group is just oblivious or intentionally oblivious and saying, oh, we're not going to do nothing about, I'm sorry, that it doesn't exist. And then there's the other group that straddles the fence and just sits around and says, oh yeah, that exists, but it's not my problem. So that's not the way to cure the problem. That's not the way that the talking about it or the protesting about it is going to happen. Stop. And that's to those of you who want to just be stubborn about it, look, it's very simple. If you want the conversation to go away, if you want the protests to go away, then pick up a book or pick up some ears and some heart and listen to the stories that are being told. Listen to the knowledge that is being spoken by people other than me, and choose to listen. Choose to let it soak in. Choose to open your eyes and look, and then see that, oh snap, that's really happening. That really happened. That really happens, and it will happen and continue to happen until something's done about it. And then get up and do something to help the fight. And then you won't have to hear about it. You see, if everybody gathers together, galvanizes, and works to get rid of it, then it won't exist to be talked about. So, it's a huge fight, and maybe people feel guilty. Maybe people feel like, what can they do? Well, if you need to know things, talk to us. Talk to us. I'm sure that we can help you out in that in that category to help you figure out something that can be done. We can tell you something that's needed. You know, but again, understanding that this is not something that was perpetuated by black people against white people. So, our if there is any reverse racism or racism from black folk to white folk, it is only a product of what we've endured. It's not. Something that we just initiate. We pop out of the womb and say, "Hey, you know what? Screw whitey," or anything like that. That's not what happens. So I want everybody to get a grips of that and understand that we need to acknowledge what's going on, where it comes from, and and um, and and what it is, what's at the root of this, and how do we tackle it. And the only way that's going to happen is together, first through conversation, um, then processing those conversations, and then turning those processes to actions. All right, so I wanted to get that out of the way, which I guess I'm not getting it out of the way because I will be speaking about that probably continuously for moons and moons and moons to come. Um, so let's see. So one of the first things that I'm going to get into, or next things that I'm going to get into, is a couple of posts. I guess I'll start with um, yes, okay. So there is a person on who is a friend of mine on Facebook, and again, every post that I mention and the people that I mention that to follow, I always speak to them. Either if I can speak to them on the phone, that's great. If the only option I have is to engage in within their text things. I keep forgetting what that's called, stems or something. But anyways, if that's the only way that I can do it, then I do that. But I definitely make sure that. Oops, hold on one second. I'm getting a little bit of a delay. Hold on. I will be right back. Give me 2 seconds. Love you guys. Hold on.